All right, we're going to do a full sharpening of my little CRKT Pilar 3 here. And I'll explain everything about this kind of as we go. Just don't need too much preamble. We're starting on my 325 Sharpal. And this is a stone that I always recommend to people. It's cheap. It was like 60 bucks on Amazon. It comes with 325 and 1200. And to be honest, with some of my higher vanadium steels, this is the only stone that I will use. I'll go straight from this to like an 8 micron strop, and that'll be it. This competes with DMTs all day long. It's a killer stone for the price and just period. The other stones that we're going to use are my Shapton glass, just to put a polish on it. This is the 8CR variant of the Pilar, and I know that certain people insist that you have to get the D2, but I like having a little bit of 8CR around. You know, I have a ton of K390, a ton of crew wear, all these steels with really high, you know, edge retention and stuff like that. It's just nice to have something that you could put a polish on, strap back without any question at all, and keep your sharpening currency up. And that's what I really like about 8CR. Look at that. We also already have a burr. That's the thing, it's just so easy. Now, it might be a little bit easier to see from this side. The way that I get my tip is by maintaining the precise same angle here. This never changes. It's always attacking this way, but you lift up the heel, and that's what sort of brings things up. Right, as soon as the tip touches, that's when you stop. If you keep going and you kind of like grind the tip, go too hard on the tip, you end up with one of those sort of funny dog ear, or I'm not sure what they're called exactly, but it looks like you have like a really wide bevel at the tip, and that gets a little bit awkward. It's the same thing with the heel on this, near the finger choil. I just make sure I'm just touching that. If you go a little bit too intense on that, it's the same thing, where you end up with this really wide bevel down low. And, you know, it's not like a crazy, terrible thing given how the knife functions or anything like that. It just looks weird, and I prefer to keep, you know, as good a sharpening technique as possible. When you're exactly where you're supposed to be, it feels nice and smooth and like it's supposed to be there. If it's grinding or funny, then that's when your edge angle is wrong. See, that's what we're looking for there. Sort of nice and easy going. You know, the whole bevel is the same size. And there we go. Now we already have a burr on both sides. That's what I love about 8CR, working it. It's so easy to work. So I'm just going to do a little bit of burr reduction, and then we're going to move on to 1200. A little note about the Pilar 3. I really like this model. It's so, it's very reminiscent of my Spydercos. I'm a pretty enthusiastic Spyderco collector. And even beyond the thumb hole, like the deployment hole. Like, I guess you could see that and say, oh, okay, that's very Spyderco-like. But it's also got that very like blade-focused ergonomic where, you know, you feel like your hand is now up into the blade. It's really, really easy to work. And that's a similar thing that I find with Spydercos, and it's kind of one of the things that it has in common with like my Manixes or my Dragonflies or any of those. So if I don't want to carry something expensive, but I still want something that feels expensive and feels awesome, then this is the knife that I take. I think this is going to be my last burr minimization run here. The other thing that you'll notice that I'm doing is running this through wood in order to sort of get rid of weaken the burr as much as possible. I don't know how necessary that is, but I found that, you know, I get a really good end result that way, so that's all that really matters. What I always check when I'm doing my 325 is that with just the most minimal pressure, will this not move? Will it catch the thumbnail? And that's pretty good. So we are ready to move over to 1200. Like I was saying before, with my higher vanadium steels with K390 and M390 and all that, this is the only stone that I use, the $60 Sharpal, and it's great. It's flat. I mean, I guess it's somewhat consistent as far as the distribution of the abrasives. I don't know. I know that it puts a ridiculous hair-splitting edge on knives, and that's really what I care about. That it puts a good edge on and doesn't seem like it, you know, causes any more damage or is any worse than something like a DMT is. At this stage, sometimes I'll start going a little bit faster because all I'm doing, I'm not really shaping anymore, so I'm not being like super ultra careful to make sure. I'm just refining. And you can hear somebody going by with a cart out in the hallway. It sounds like a thunderstorm. All right, starting to look good already. We're not going to need to stay long on this side, or on this particular stone. And to be honest, going over to the Shaptons isn't crazy necessary. I just love it. Creates such a beautiful polish on my steels that, you know, with a steel like 8CR or 14C or 9CR, which is a great steel, one of my favorite budget steels, I can't help it but to go over to the Shaptons. You'll see it at the end here. Not only is it really beautiful the way what it does, but it sets you up for your strops perfectly. And again, when I get to the tip or I get to the heel, I get to where I just touch it and don't go any further. So at this point, what I'll do here, we have a tiny bit of a folded over burr on the other side. I'm just going to hit that really quick, and then we're going to do a really light pass through the wood, just to demolish the end of that burr, which is going to set us up really nicely for my 6 micron stone. That was a super light pass. You still have the tiniest bit of burr left here. I think you might even be able to hear it a little bit. It creates this funny little scraping, folding kind of sound that when I first started sharpening felt really weird to me, and I was like, oh boy, I've blown my angle. But after a while, you get used to that, what that feels like and sounds like when you're attacking the burr there. Awesome. All right, we're looking really good on both sides. We have a very consistent scratch pattern of 1200 on both sides. I don't know how well that's going to show up. And I'll always look at it this way too, to make sure, you know, that my tip is looking consistent as well. All right, let's move over to the Shaptons. That is that. That's all it took. I mean, you could strap this, put it in your pocket, and it would be great. And for most things, it would actually probably be even better than what I'm about to do to it. But I just like the look. I like to sharpen, so let's actually make sure that I'm on my 6 micron stone here. Yes, not ready to move over to 0.44 just yet. And you can get away with big jumps like that with these types of steels. I mean, 1200 grit to 6 micron is not a huge jump. 6 micron is very similar to 2000 grit. So this is a very standard jump that we're making right now. So I'm not going to need to stay long on this stone. We're just trying to get a nice little polish on it and some refinement. Very, very light pressure. And if I could get away with it, I would sharpen everything on these Shaptons because they just feel so incredible. They tell you exactly where you are and you're sharpening. It's kind of a weird thing that people say. You know, they talk about feedback and stuff like that, and they talk about stones kind of letting you know where you are in the process. And what that feels like on a literal level is things get less scrapey and a little bit more smooth. That's kind of what it is. Like, it almost starts to feel like more glassy or something like that as you get closer to the finish line. And I'm starting to get into that territory already. These are very fast cutting stones. And right there, that's probably all we're going to need to do. Oh yeah. Get a rag. That's probably all we're going to need to do on that side. I mean, I'll hit it once more after just to make sure if I'm doing any burrage, it's getting knocked off. And you can see here, it's the same motion. My angle is never changing. The one thing that is changing is that I'm lifting the heel up in order to just barely touch the tip. And when you're first starting off at this, like everybody says, but it's true, you'll go slower than this. But when you start to get good, you can feel when you're right on it, and so you just don't need to go slow anymore. You can feel, you know, even at this speed here, I could tell I'm fine. I'm right on that bevel. A little bit at the tip, a little bit at the heel, a couple more passes, and we'll be in really good shape. See, I'm using such light pressure here that the blade actually jumped up there for a second and left the stone. So that just goes to show when I'm at this stage. Because what you're doing is you're refining. You just want to get refinement, refinement, refinement. So, oh, you can almost feel it digging into your fingernail at this point. So probably even now, if I hit it with a strop, it would split a hair. But since I have my half micron stone, I might as well go to it. I mean, we're here. All right, good. And that is that. Cool. I just wanted to hit that side one more time in case a little burp knocked over there. Make sure that I get to it. All right, wash that off later. Let's go get my 0.44 micron stone. I hate soaking stones, and I think that that's one of the reasons that I initially got the Shapton glass set. It's because you don't have to deal with that. And in some ways, like these, you know, these types of stones, the Shapton glass stones, the ones with really like high density, hard aluminum oxide, for steels like this, they're kind of like a best of both worlds. They cut really fast, not quite as aggressively as diamonds, but they cut really fast. They still have that great, awesome feel that you get on like a Japanese water stone or an Arkansas stone. A similar feel to Shapton glass and or the Naniwas or any of those are Arkansas stones. They have a very, very beautiful tactile feel to them. I don't know if any go quite this fine. This is 0.44 micron. This is like really whacked out and completely unnecessary. But, you know, all right, let's see where we're at there. Oh. It gets that beautiful point of sharpness where it starts to look dark because it's reflecting so much light, and that's what I really like about going so down low with this. I'll do a few more passes of this than I do on the 6 micron stone, just because it's a, you know, when you look at the math of it, 6 microns to 0.44 microns is a little bit of a leap. So I'll spend a little longer on it, but again, with a steel like HCR, you really don't have to be obsessive about making sure that your grits are perfectly lined up. And again here, just like the 2000 grit, or like the 6 micron, I'm just going super light on it because we're looking to just refine and polish. That's all that's going on at this point. Alright, I'm going to hit the other side one more time after this. And then the preliminary check off the stones is to see if I can get it to shave right off the stones. You can see the little tiny pieces of burr in here, and that's kind of, it's almost weird, like this, like the way that this 0.44 is almost kind of a pseudo strop for me. I go so light on it. It's really just refining, and you will get little things like that where little pieces of burr will just kind of flop off. And so that by the time you get to your strops, you're doing such incredible refinement that the blades just feel sticky sharp is a kind of a stupid term, but that's really what it feels like. It just feels like it's biting and sticking to you. And again, just to reiterate, because even at every level, my angle never changes. I'm just lifting the heel up just to get that tip, just barely get that tip. One more quick pass on the other side, then we're going to get our strops. I'll show you really quickly the tests that we do. Make sure that we got some sharpness going on. Yeah, you can almost feel it too on the stones when there's essentially no burr left. All you get is smoothness as opposed to that occasional folding over type feeling. All right. The real trick here is going to be finding out where I actually have arm hair to test this against. Yeah, there's a little patch right there. Let's see if we can get this stuff. Yep, it's immediate. Just takes it off and it's just on the blade now. So that's what you're looking for. If you want to end up with like ultimate razor, whittle a hair sharp, then by the time you leave your stones, you should already be shaving. All right, let's go get the strop real quick, and then that'll be that. We'll have a ridiculously sharp CRKT Pilar 3. So I have this strop loaded with 1 micron, 0.5 micron, and let's see actually what I have on this. Yep, I have 1 micron up here. This is 100K, and this is 200K, which is, oh boy, it's ridiculous. Let's put it that way. So we're just gonna go the same exact angle here, maybe a tiny bit back, like a tiny bit more this way, just to keep from rolling over that bevel. For some reason, my stropping I don't do ambidextrously. I think it's because I can see this and feel this quite nicely this way. So I just use my right hand. And so you might think, okay, we just did a 0.5 micron stone, so I'm coming down to a 1 micron strop. And that might seem oddly counterintuitive, but this is also a diamond compound that's really, you're still getting refinement. It's hard to explain. There will be little parts of the bevel that won't quite have caught every little bit of your 0.44 micron stone unless you stay there all day. So what this really does is it sort of helps refine those little scratch patterns here and there that you might have missed with the stone that's back from your edge. So you're still getting really good refinement. And in anybody's book, 1 micron is enough to, it's enough to cut anything that you want times 10. So I think we're gonna stop at 1 micron and just see what we got. I'll try to find a good, I'll see if I can find a good angle with which to whittle the hair. Make sure we got that tip on this side. Awesome. So you can see two things we're talking about. Ridiculously shiny, polished bevel, and it's nice and even from back to front. All right, let me grab a hair here and see if I can't find a good angle to get it at. This is such an oddball thing to film. And I think, at any rate, I think it makes the point. You know, who cares if I have a hair splitting edge? But it's just showing you that the Shaptons will indeed very quickly put a ridiculous edge on this thing. This is a great knife, honestly. In the budget category, it really competes with my Spydercos all day long. And HCR is beautiful to sharpen, super easy. A lot of people recommend the D2. I recommend the HCR.